Good morning, folks, and another day to do some morning Bible reading. Sorry, I didn't get anything up yesterday. I got busy doing some stuff, and that was my fault. I probably uh, got up too late, and um, I'll try not to do that in the future. So, today we'll be reading Genesis chapter 18, and can I just say, I hope everybody has a wonderful Sunday. There's just something really special about Sundays for me because they're just a day where I feel like I can dedicate the day to the Lord. It's a special day and to love, to my family. And, well, we don't practice the Sabbath in society today the way that, people had. And uh, sometimes I think that that might be a mistake. I do my best to maintain some reverence uh, for the whole of the day and wherever I can and whatever I'm doing, to always bring God into it with me. And so I hope you do the same today, and I hope that you have a wonderful day and you enjoy your family and find some time to spend with God. So, Genesis chapter 18. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered, "do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said, "get 3 seahs of the finest flour, and knead it and bake some bread." Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to a servant, who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared, and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. "Where's your wife Sarah?" they asked him. "There, in the tent," he said. Then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance of the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, so Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure?" Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, "I did not laugh." But he said, "Yes, you did laugh." When the men got up to leave, they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord, by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him." Then the Lord said, "The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know." The men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, "Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do what is right?" The Lord said, "If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake." Then Abraham spoke up again. Now then I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes. What if the number of righteous people is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for the lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it, if I find 30 there. Abraham said, now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. So, this is kind of interesting. So the 3 men, the 3 visitors, arrive. And Abraham is immediate to greet them in a generous and hospitable way. And so it seems as though the visitors are obliged to stay and accept his offer. It's interesting that I'm not sure that we're told. I don't think we're told, and I'm not sure that it's apparent that the 3 visitors are angels from the Lord, or the Lord himself. And yet Abraham greets them, obviously, as hospitably as he possibly can. And it doesn't seem like he's taken aback when they mention his wife Sarah by name. He just finds that to be a totally normal occurrence, that 3 men that he has not seen before, as far as we know, walk up to him and know his wife's name. And he's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. So I suspect that Abraham had some idea that this was the Lord that he was speaking to. Because we do find that out. That does become explicit. But not at first. So we see that Sarah laughs in disbelief. And sorry for the long pause, I'm just trying to think. But it seems like Sarah and Abraham, they show a lot of faith through a whole bunch of places through this book. Now there's some certain places where Abraham does some things to kind of undermine the truth and to speak half-truths out of fear. But he still generally is following the Lord as best he can, as well as he can, right? And it's kind of building his faith as he goes through here. And we see that this is happening now with Sarah too. I mean, it has been happening with her the whole time too. She's been having to follow Abraham and have faith in what Abraham is telling her that he's having faith in from God. And perhaps it takes even more faith on the part of Sarah to follow God by proxy, not being the one to hear, not being the one to have the visions and to hear the voice of God. And so we still see, though, that there's a little bit of disbelief in Sarah's heart. And God points that out. He brings attention to it when she tries to hide it. And I think that that's so true for all of us. That as we walk in faith and as we find ourselves, committing ourselves to God more and more, that God will point out those places of disbelief when you think that you're solid and you think you've got it. Then it's like God opens up a little more of your heart to show you a little bit more of where you still demand control and won't let go. And we saw that with Hagar and having Abraham marry Hagar and have a child, because Sarah didn't believe that this child would be coming. And that happens so often with us. You know, I was talking to somebody yesterday. I finally got a haircut. I haven't had a haircut in forever. I don't know if it's the best haircut I've ever had. I'm happy to have it cut. And I was talking to the person cutting my hair. And one of the things that I said to her was that God will always bail you out if you will give him the bucket. But so long as you still got a hand on it, as long as you still think that you can do some of it, or you have to do some of it, in your anxiety, you demand control over the situation and you try to fix it yourself. As long as you're trying to fix it, God will let you struggle until you find out that you can't do it without him. And once you find out that you can't do it without him, once you're sure that you need him to do it, he'll do it for you. He will fix it. He will bail you out. But you've got two routes there. One is through faith, and you can give him the bucket right at the beginning, knowing that God will do what is best for you. Or two, you can try to do everything you possibly can until you exhaust yourself in every possible way that you could exhaust yourself. You find yourself completely flattened and crushed in the face of this problem. And then you hand God the bucket because you're out of options and it's your last resort. And then he bails you out because, again, finally, you're relying only on him. And it looks miraculous. And the miracle was always there for you. But it's unto your faith. Do you think he can do it? As long as you think you can do it without him, then you don't need him, and he'll let you. And there are some things that it's good and right for us to control. We should control what we have control over. But wisdom is knowing what you have control over. And there's a lot more things that we don't have control over than we think. And maybe in the end it's nothing. Maybe there's nothing that we actually have control over. But I think that's something that you learn in time in your walk with God. And I don't think that I've walked long enough to be there yet. So maybe one day I'll come on here as an old gray-haired man and I can tell you whether we have control over anything or whether you have to just relinquish every moment to God, which is probably the right answer. In my heart, that sounds like the right answer, right? But anyway. Now, after this period of them, or this dialogue, and them setting off to Sodom, it's interesting to see that there's this rhetorical exchange here about whether or not to hide the destruction of Sodom from Abraham, right? And so it almost implies like that God is a God of decision in the moment. And, you know, it's difficult to know because also, again, this may be angels, and God is more than you can say anything about. So my impression is that God knows, and God has already decided because he's known the beginning from the end. But does that mean that in this moment that God is not still deciding for this moment? Just because he knows what he will decide, does it relinquish him of the need to decide? I don't know. But he decides to tell Abraham. And in doing so, Abraham is alarmed because he's afraid that there's righteous people there. And God says, okay, well, go ahead and We'll see. So, you know, with that said, too, isn't that so much like Noah and the flood? And we'll see that it's actually quite a bit like Noah and the flood here as we go on, but just on a different scale. So, anyway, Genesis chapter 19. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. When he saw them, he got up to meet them and bowed down with his face to the ground. "My lords," he said, "please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning." "No," they answered, "we will spend the night in the square." But he insisted so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, surrounded the house. They called to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." Lot went outside to meet them and shut the door behind him and said, "No, my friends, do not do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof." "Get out of our way," they replied. "This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them." They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moving forward to break down the door, but the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, daughters, or sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? Get them out of here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it." So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who were pledged to marry his daughters. He said, "Hurry and get out of this place, because the Lord is about to destroy the city." But his sons-in-law thought he was joking. With the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, "Hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished." When he hesitated, the men grasped his hand and the hands of his wife and his 2 daughters and led them safely out of the city, for the Lord was merciful to them. As soon as they had brought them out, one of them said, "Flee for your lives. Don't look back, and don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains, or you will be swept away." But Lot said to them, "No, my lords, please. Your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. But I can't flee to the mountains. This disaster will overtake me, and I'll die. Look, here is a town near enough for me to run to, and it is small. Let me flee to it. It is very small, isn't it? Then my life will be spared." He said to them, "Very well, I will grant this request too. I will not overthrow the town you speak of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it. That is why the town is called Zoar." By the time Lot reached Zoar, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities, and also the vegetation in the land. But Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord. He looked down toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land, like smoke from a furnace. So when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham, and he brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. Lot and his daughters. Lot and his 2 daughters left Zoar and settled in the mountains, for he was afraid to stay in Zoar. He and his 2 daughters lived in a cave. One day, the older daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man around here to give us children, as is the custom all over the earth. Let's get our father to drink wine and sleep with him and preserve our family line through our father. That night they got their father to drink wine, and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight, and you go in and sleep with him, so we can preserve our family line through our father." So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went in and slept with him. Again he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. Okay, there's a whole bunch going on here. And with the question in the last chapter about whether or not the men that came to Abraham, the three men, if they were angels, the Lord, or the Lord with angels. Well, we kind of see an answer here later because, well, maybe not. It still is kind of up to debate, I guess. But we see that it's stated in 1912 that the two men said to Lot, "Do you have anyone else here?" So now it's two men instead of three. He says, "Get them out of here because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to destroy it." So he has sent us. So they're saying they are not. Neither of them is the Lord. But now there's only two, and there had been three. So is it the Lord who had been with them and who was the third of their party? No. Anyway, but this is really interesting because this story really recapitulates the story of Noah in so many different ways, right? Now, God promised not to flood the entire earth and destroy all of humankind again. But it doesn't mean that he's not going to do something about this terribly wicked city. And so the angels that come to destroy the city, they're moved by his generosity and hospitality. And we can see that he's willing to pay a price to protect them. And you can see that they are righteous. And so in a way, this is kind of like us. And if we're willing to pay a price to protect the righteous parts of us, even when they're surrounded by wickedness in our heart or our mind, that God will spare those parts of us and protect them. And so he says they've come under my roof, or under my protection, the protection of my roof. Well, it's very interesting that Lot is the one that declares that, but then it ends up being true for him as well. Everyone who's under that roof is spared. But those who are not under that roof, the sons-in-laws that he has to go and speak to, nobody else is spared. So that is true. Anybody who was under that roof was under protection, but not his, but God's. Now, it's not so great, clearly, obviously, that the men of the city came out to have sex with these visitors. That seems odd. And it seems very interesting to me that Lot was able to preserve the virginity of his daughters in a town who, upon the hearing of the appearance of two new people in the town, immediately gathered together to go have sex with somebody. So Lot had some morals, right? He was able to keep his children apart from that somehow, because it seems like this probably should have happened to them too, right? Now, what is not so great is that Lot, under pressure, immediately offers up his children too, which is kind of not the greatest thing. And that's something I'd have to think through, because, there's a lot of symbolism between male and female in the Bible, and not to make judgment about that in terms of actual people. But just in the Bible, it can kind of come with different implications. But I don't know that that's what's happening here, as to why Lot offers up his children to protect these men. And I guess I don't know the laws and customs of the day and what would be considered a righteous deed and wouldn't. But I'm certain offering your daughters up to be raped is not a good thing. It's totally unacceptable. So it's interesting, though. This house has been kind of already declared a house of protection. And then the angels pull Lot in when he's about to pay a cost to preserve this righteousness, and strike everyone else with blindness so they can't find the door. Right? Now, that's an interesting thing, because to say that the wicked can't find the door to protection. So if there isn't a righteous part of you, then you aren't able to enter the home. You aren't able to be spared from destruction. So Lot hesitates, right? So here he still is not totally as faithful as he needs to be, but of course he's in this city of wickedness. He might be the most righteous person there, even if he's still struggling in all these ways. So the men grab him and they take him, they force him out by God's grace and mercy. And they flee. Now it's interesting, they tell him to go to the mountains, but he says, I don't know if I can go that far. Well, isn't that true of us? Isn't that true of us? When God asks us to do something, when the Holy Spirit convicts us of something that we know we need to change about ourselves, well, if it was easy to change, if we thought we could change, we probably already would have changed. And so often we say, God, I can't do that. I might be able to do part of it. I don't know if I can do all of it. And so he asked to go to this city. It's a halfway point. I don't know that it's halfway, but just, for the sake of illustration, to the halfway point. And they say, okay, you can go to that city. Because God, I think, so often in our lives is more interested in progress than perfection. If we're willing to meet him halfway, he's willing to wait. He's long-suffering. He's patient. And as long as our heart is there to want to serve him, to do what he's asked us to do, then he will make room. Because we have a gracious God. It's not for us to abuse, but it is for us to know that you just have to keep trying and get a little farther each day. Because we see that after that, the fear of the Lord makes Lot wise. He's afraid to stay in Zoar. So then he goes to the mountains, right? Now, this is interesting because once he gets to the mountains, we skipped a really important part, right? Lot's wife. She looks back and turns into a pillar of salt. When God calls us out of our crappy, wicked situations, whatever that may be, whether we're prone to, laziness, gluttony, lying, if we have addictions, if we have, it might just be gossiping, whatever. And I say might just be. It can be a bad thing. It can really hurt people. If we have things that we need to fix in our heart, God will convict us of that. The Holy Spirit will tell us. And as we start to move, it is uncomfortable. Lot says, I'm an old man, right? I don't know if I can make it that far. I don't think I can make it to the mountains. He goes as far as he can, and then he goes a little further. But he has to rest in between. It's going to be uncomfortable. Lot's saying it's going to be uncomfortable. He's saying, I don't think I can do that. And Lot's wife, she can't bear the discomfort. She wants to return to the comforts of where she came from. We don't know that Lot's wife wants anything to be better in her life. We don't know that. We do know that she looks back because she doesn't want to bear the discomfort that would save her. And God's not asking them to bear all of it at once. God's not asking them to do more than they can do, only to carry what they can carry. In this case, it's to go to Zoar. But she doesn't want to do that. She would rather be destroyed in her comfort. And so she becomes a pillar of salt. Salt is a preservative. Salt keeps things the way they are. And she doesn't move. She becomes frozen. And she stays the way she is. And Lot and his daughters go on without her. And it's really sad for Lot's wife. And for Lot and his daughters. I mean, that sucks. Anyway, after this round of destruction and the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot's fleeing to Zoar, and then to the mountain where they live in a cave, we see that Lot now makes the same mistake that Noah made, right? Just as Noah was saved from the flood and was preserved by God and is allowed to start over, what mistake does he make? He gets drunk. And then his children see him naked. And there's this curse that comes from Noah, and we don't hear anything else about Noah. Then we just hear that Noah dies eventually. So we know that getting drunk is not good, but what is it referring to here? Because does it necessarily mean getting drunk? Now, in both of these, they say explicitly it's wine, and that's, for these stories, let's say that that's exactly what happened, because that's what it says. But in our lives, when we're saved from our own wickedness and we're able to do better, we're brought out of a wicked place, I think sometimes getting drunk can just mean losing focus. It can mean all the things that getting drunk means. It can mean compromise, inhibitions removed, and to backslide towards the things that we escaped. And so we have to be of sober mind, like we will hear later, and keep our focus, keep our attention, keep watch. We have to be ready. We can't get complacent just because we had a victory, just because things got better. We can't then become proud and think we need to pay any less attention. Because when that happens, sin creeps back in. And in this case, it was a pretty major one, right? I mean, Lot's daughters engage in incest. And then we don't, anyway. So let's stop there. And takeaways here. God calls you somewhere, go as far as you can. Don't expect to be perfect. God will meet you where you can be met. But have a willing heart and do as he says. God will sometimes be merciful if you are willing to sacrifice for him, if he knows that you're willing to bear a cost, to follow him, then he'll pull you out even if you're hesitating. And once God gets you somewhere away from your wickedness, don't look back and don't become casual and complacent. Keep your focus, and all will go well with you, at least as well as it can. So, all right, I love you all. I hope that you have a wonderful Sunday. I hope that if you go to church, that you have a great time at church. And if you don't, I hope that you spend some time with God and with your family and in love, because he who does not know God, or does not know love, does not know God, for God is love. And so know that when you are genuinely showing love to others, that God is there too. So spend time with him, and I'll see you tomorrow.